What is going on, everybody? My name is Justin Mason, and I'm here representing the JJL Talk Show. My co host will be joining me shortly, but I wanted to go ahead and get started. And I want to start off by talking about the Field of Dreams game. This was a game that was 2 years in the making. MLB had started this idea back in 2019, and then, of course, COVID hit and pretty much shut everything down, as we already know. and so this Field of Dreams game really represented a lot of my childhood, and I think it represented a lot of everybody's childhood. I mean, anyone who is familiar with the movie, anybody who just knows anything about baseball knows that that's one of the biggest sports, biggest baseball games or baseball movies out there to date. So for the MLB to be able to do this Field of Dreams game in Iowa was just amazing. And the game itself, I mean, you have the Yankees and the White Sox. Yankees are kind of rocky. The White Sox, they're doing great this year. So you have two teams who are kind of vying for their spots. And man, just to watch them trade home runs, just especially in that ninth inning when Judge and Stanton hit their home runs. And then the bottom of the ninth, Anderson comes with a walk-off 2-run home run just to seal the game. And that's what baseball is, man. I love games like that. I love just those back and forth games. You know, I hate the pitcher is throwing a no-hitter in the 7th inning and the opposing pitcher is throwing a one-hitter. I love offense in baseball. So just to see that game, 2 years in the making, and just to see it, how it worked out. And I'm hoping that baseball does this as a yearly thing, maybe even twice a year. It was just so interesting to see the cornfields and everything behind the outfield walls and all of that. Just, I don't know. It was probably one of my favorite games of the year. So I hope you guys enjoyed that game. And going just across the MLB, I mean, the Braves, I'm a big fan of the Braves. They're my team. So the Braves lost 12-3. Just a huge, disheartening loss to the Reds, especially with the Braves trying to get back the lead of their division. I don't know what to say. The offense faltered. Just everything really fell apart. And this is not the time of the year for any team to fall apart, honestly. So looking back at some preseason football. Preseason football kicked off last week, of course, with the Hall of Fame game. But you had the Patriots and I lost who it was. Just had it pulled up. I apologize. Anyway, you had the Patriots playing last night, and that was a crazy game. Just to see Cam Newton and Mac Jones and what I personally think is going to be one of the bigger quarterback battles. People can say Cam Newton has the edge all they want to, but you look at where Bill Belichick chose Mac Jones at in the draft. To choose him as the 15th pick overall in the draft to know the history that he has with Coach Saban and Mac Jones being an NFL or a Nick Saban guy, an Alabama guy, and they played the Steelers, by the way. I lost my tab. Just to see those two entities come together. I think Mac Jones is going to start quicker than we think. I think Mac Jones may start week 5, week 6, just because we all know Cam's health issues. Cam is not the MVP Cam. He's not the guy who led the Panthers to the Super Bowl. He's not that guy. Now, the only issue that I see with Mac Jones is not a mobile guy. Trust me, I know. I watched him all through college. And if you listen to the JJL show that we did last week, the NFL is going away from pocket passers. You have Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, Tom Brady. Those are really the pocket passer guys that are active in the league right now. I mean, you could consider Josh Allen a pocket passer because I think he's more a 70-30 pocket passer scrambler. But you really look at Bill Belichick's offense. How long did he have Tom Brady? So I think that favors Mac Jones, because you look at the success that Tom Brady had in that offense. Now, of course, he's Tom Brady. He had weapons around him, crazy weapons around him. He had Wes Welker. He had Randy Moss in that 2007 record-breaking season. You got a guy like Josh McDaniels who is trying to adapt to everything that's going on right now, to all the offensive changes that are being made, and so on and so forth. And just to look at them bringing in, because you don't bring in a first-round pick without the intention of starting him this first year. That's what kind of befuddles me about the comments that Urban Meyer made, where he said that they're going to have a quarterback competition. Gardner Minshew's been here a few years. He deserves to be in the running for that first or that starting job. But you have Trevor Lawrence, who is the first overall pick. 10 times out of 10, who wins? That first overall pick is going to start week 1, barring injury. And I kind of look at Trevor Lawrence in kind of the Josh Allen realm. Trevor Lawrence is this, I mean, he's got a cannon of an arm, but he can also use his legs. But he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Dwayne Haskins, Robert Griffin III. He's not these guys who are going to rely more on their legs than they are their arm. That's the same with Gardner Minshew. The few games that I watched Gardner Minshew play, because I'm a Titans fan as well, so the Titans and the Jaguars play twice a year. He's more of a pocket passer. So you have this rookie head coach, and this rookie quarterback. I mean, who's going to start? It's going to be Trevor Lawrence. And then I look at the Jets and their second pick overall, the number 2 pick. I don't think the Jets are going to take a step forward. The Jets have a history of really losing quarterbacks. I mean, you look at Sam Darnold. You look at guys like his name left me. Butt fumble is what I remember him by. But you look at guys like that, and you look at the Jets' history of quarterbacks, and it's like, what are they doing? Like, are they going to kill this guy too in 2 years? I think Sam Darnold is going to do huge things with the Panthers because he's not going to be in a Jets uniform. And it's crazy to me to think about how that happens. I look at, as I said, being a Titans fan, I look at Ryan Tannehill going from the Dolphins and coming to the Titans. And he's like a different player. Not that he wasn't good with the Dolphins, but he also wasn't good with the Dolphins. So you have those guys, just like I think Matt Stafford is going to be huge for the Rams. I just think that he needed a change of scenery after all those years. He needed a coach like Sean McVay. And we're going to do our predictions when Jordan gets on with us. But I think the Rams win their division this year. They were a game away last year. And of course, they made it in the wild card. But I think the Rams win their division this year just having Matthew Stafford. Now, the other game yesterday, preseason game, was the Steelers and the Eagles. Now, I don't know how I do know how I feel about starters not playing in the preseason. I understand it because you don't want your guys to get injured in the preseason. We've seen it happen multiple times. We've seen guys go down in the preseason and come back in the regular season and not be the same. But at the same time, like, I understand it with Big Ben. I understand it with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who has said that he's not going to start. With Carson Wentz's injury with the Colts, I doubt he starts until week 1. That's just given the 5-week minimum that his recovery could take, which they're leaning towards that 5 weeks anyway. I understand not starting starters, excluding rookies, but at the same time, there are fans that come. Yes, they come to see the rookies. Yes, they come to see the second string, third string. Maybe they have a family member who's trying to make the 53-man roster, et cetera, et cetera. But why not give these fans a series? Now, anything can happen in one play. It only takes one play for somebody to roll up your knee and you be out for the year with an ACL injury. But at the same time, some of these fans are paying money to go to these preseason games. And you just kind of look at that and you go, man, are we cheating them? I don't know. So, but I'm excited to see this weekend. It's going to be Miami and Chicago. I believe Justin Fields is going to play with Chicago. I'm not sure about Tua. I assume Tua will play. You have kind of an intriguing matchup with Houston and Green Bay. And speaking of Houston, what are they going to do with the Deshaun Watson situation? There's so many new things coming out about this, allegations and all this sexual assault and stuff like that. So it kind of makes you wonder where they're going to go. And I kind of wonder where they're going to be in the standings. I mean, I don't see them winning the division. I think the Titans are going to win the AFC South. I think the Colts are going to take a step back from last year because Carson Wentz just hasn't been reliable health-wise the last couple of years. Now, I know he's back with Frank Wright and all of that, but having a offensive mind that you're familiar with doesn't keep you from being injured. So I do think that the offensive line for the Colts is a whole lot better than that offensive line was for the Eagles. That being said, I see the Colts taking a step back. I see the Jaguars taking a step forward. I don't see them being fourth in the South, but I do see the Titans winning the South. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because, like I said, when Jordan joins me later on, we'll be going through our divisional picks and everything like that. So, Summer League basketball. There have been some crazy games. There have been some blowouts. I never really understood. I do understand, but I don't understand the Summer League. Um, I get that your rookies and your G League players are getting a chance to kind of shine, kind of show, what they're capable of and everything. But I feel like it's been a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, you have all these teams kind of in a bubble in a sense because they're all in, I believe, in Las Vegas. But and I haven't watched much of it. I've seen the highlights and everything. Jalen Suggs has been huge. But I don't think the summer league is good for it's good for the NBA revenue wise, but I don't think the summer league is good for the players. Most of these players are already coming off of a college season and they're going straight into a summer league season back to back. If the teams like what they see, they're going to go into an NBA season. So I know these guys are young, but I don't know. I've never really been a fan of the summer league, and I've never really been a fan of the Olympics as far as basketball wise. You're putting players at risk there too. And again, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the, watch out, you're going to injure your entire team guy. But and you have to look out for the future of these kids. It only takes one injury for somebody to lose their career. When you're in the MLB, your money's guaranteed because it's not a cap sport. But the MLB also takes care of their players in a sense. I don't like the 162 game schedule. I would love for it to be bumped down to 81. But that's a collective bargaining thing. I know 162 is what's best for their revenue, but you have to look at, how much are these teams making as it is? It's a huge risk. And I know the MLB has been playing 162 games for years on top of the spring training games and all that stuff. But man, it's a huge risk on a lot of these older players too, especially with everything going around. So I'm hoping, and I know I kind of jumped weirdly. It's kind of odd doing this solo for right now, but it's going to be interesting to see because this has been in the back of the MLB's mind for a few years, just shortening the season. And I think the season that they had last year, the COVID shortened 60 game season, I think that kind of opened their eyes to kind of look at, hey, do we really need 162 games? I watch guys like Freddie Freeman, who plays for the Braves, of course, and he has played the majority of the games the last few years. Played 162 games a few years ago. He almost played every game this year, but he had an upper respiratory infection last weekend, which actually sidelined him for a start. Sickness is going to happen. Stuff like that's going to happen. Injuries are going to happen. But you have to look out for the future of your league. A guy like Dansby Swanson, who is another Brave, has played every game this season. So you have guys like that who are dedicated. But I don't know. I look at where the NBA is as far as where they mandated rest in, I think it was 2019. And not players, but fans had a fuss about that. Because fans come to see the stars. If LeBron James is resting on a day, on a mandatory rest day, on a load management day, fans get pissed. I mean, fans want to see the stars, and I don't blame them. I mean, if I went to an Atlanta Hawks game and Trae Young was sitting, I'd be upset because I'm paying my hard-earned money. I'm going to a Hawks game, and the superstar is sitting. Now, that might be a little bit different with the Lakers this year because you have LeBron, you have Russ, you have AD, you have all those guys. And I'm kind of interested to see how they work together. We mentioned this on our last episode. You've got two guys who are used to having the ball in their hands all the time. Russell is used to a double-double triple-double every other game. LeBron is used to averaging a double-double, close to a triple-double sometimes. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see who takes the ball down the court when all five are on the court. I want to talk a little bit about the NHL. And I know I'm bouncing around a lot, but like I said, it's kind of tough doing this solo. But free agency in the NHL. So one of the big signings that just happened today was Joe Thornton joining the Panthers. And then we also had the Jets and Andrew Kopp signing a deal. I don't follow the NHL very much, but I recognize these names. And I love free agency periods in any sport just because it gives these guys a chance to make a choice. When you go into college, you have the choice of these schools are offering me this, and I want to go here. And so when you go into a league like the NHL, you go into the MLB, NBA, anything like that, you get drafted. So you really don't have a choice as to where you go. And that's why I love free agency. You know, these guys get to say, look, I want to go here because I want to win a championship. And I feel like this team is a piece away and I'm that piece. Or they go, look, this is my hometown team. I want to play for my hometown team. This is where I'm going. And that's the beauty of free agency. You know, you have a guy like Russell Westbrook. You have a guy like Dwight Howard, who went back to the Lakers. Carmelo Anthony, who's with the Lakers now. These guys are looking, and I'm sure LeBron has a lot to do with this because everywhere he's went, he has his hands in every decision that's being made. He is a general manager without having the role of a general manager. He gets paid a lot better than a lot of the general managers too, but that's a different story for a different time. But you look at these guys and their decisions, and I think the Panthers were a player away. Joe Thornton is a veteran. And you just look at how far the Panthers got in the playoffs this year. And I think, of course, they lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning. But you look at a team like the Panthers, and I mean, I think this signing, along with a couple of other signings, could really be what they need for them to take that step and to stop the Lightning from being a three-peat champion. Now, I mentioned college football, and college football is very, very close. The first weekend of September, actually, is when the big slate of games start. And a big story with college football is and has been the NIL, name, image, and likeness rule that has really taken over everything with colleges and with college players. I mean, you see guys signing these major deals. I mean, quarterbacks signing $800,000 $1 million deals, endorsement deals with all of these different brands. And I think this is going to hurt college football. I think there was a reason. I know there was a reason that the players weren't allowed to get endorsements before. Now, look, were they treated right? No. They were shorted a lot of things. And you see these reports where just so many people or so many players went hungry in a lot of these smaller schools. And I like that they have freedom to kind of choose endorsements and choose these numbers that they're getting, these checks that they're getting. But I don't like the amount. I mean, you're paying a college kid $1 million. A lot of these guys, when they get into the NFL and they're 3 or 4 years older, when they sign these big deals, I mean, they go crazy. So you can imagine a college kid at 18, 19, something like that, getting this $1 million deal, $800,000 deal. I mean, who knows what they're going to do with the money? And I'm not saying that they can't be responsible, but does the NIL allow them to hire an agent to help them be responsible with this money? What are the other changes to help these guys out? Because, yeah, they can give the money to their families. Yeah, they can, their parents can help them with the money. Because God knows the school system isn't helping them learn financial responsibility right now. So I just really think that a lot of these companies that are signing guys to these record-breaking deals for college students, I think they need to tone it down a little bit. Because, I mean, I think back to seeing reports of players who went out and spent their first 2 checks on stupid stuff. They thought that they were getting a good investment, and the investment busted, and now they're out their first 2 or 3 checks. There has to be balance. And I think that the NCAA jumped into this head first instead of feet first. And I think that we should have eased ourselves. They should have eased themselves into it a little bit more. Now, as far as the games, one game that I'm looking forward to as an Alabama fan that's coming up on Saturday, the first Saturday, is Alabama and Miami. Miami had a rough year last year, and a lot of people have been hyping Miami up on social media. So I'm kind of excited to see what Miami does. It's going to be the ABC game, 2:30 ABC game on Saturday. I'm just looking through the schedule right now. I mean, you have all of the, cupcake games. All of the teams are looking at, Missouri and Central Michigan, Texas, Louisiana. So we kind of look at those games and say, all right, who's gonna want it more? Who's going to want to look at one of these top 25 teams and go, I got your number. But then I look at a game like Clemson and Georgia. Georgia, from a lot of experts, is the favorite over Alabama to win the SEC. Clemson is losing their star quarterback. Now, the guy who's starting for them this year, when he played against Notre Dame, when Trevor Lawrence was out, he did well. I mean, he, of course, lost the game. That was Clemson's only loss in the regular season last year. And then they came back and avenged that loss in the ACC championship. But you kind of look at, and I know Alabama's going to be going through the same thing with Bryce Young replacing Mac Jones. I look at the coaching staff, though, and how established this coaching staff is. I mean, Dabo Swinney is one of the top tenured coaches behind Nick Saban. So he knows about quarterback turnover, player turnover in general. So I don't think that he's going to have a problem there. I think where he's going to have the problem is just Georgia in general. Georgia hears everybody talk. Hears everybody talk them up. Hears everybody tell them how much better Alabama is than them. And that's every year. I mean, you have every team in the SEC looking down or looking up at Alabama from down below them. But then you've got an established quarterback on this Georgia team in JT Daniels. So you I think that kind of balances the scales in a sense. And I think that this Clemson and Georgia game, honestly, is going to be the game to watch week 1. I think Georgia might squeak out a victory because of what I said, because they have the advantage as far as just the level of play and the experience that they have. I look at a game like LSU and UCLA. LSU had a down year last year after winning the championship. UCLA, I think Chip Kelly might be on the chopping block this year. If he doesn't do better than he's done the last couple of years. And I know last year was weird for Pac-12 teams because they only played a conference schedule. You know, they didn't play all of the extra games like some of the SEC teams played and some of the ACC team played. So it was kind of an up and down thing for the Pac-12. But I'm excited to see the LSU-UCLA game. I always pull for the SEC when they play out of conference games just because I'm an SEC guy. But I do like Chip Kelly, and I hope that he does well this year. And those are the big games on Saturday, but then you have two games that are kind of marquee matchups, and they're the only games being played. One game on Sunday, which is Notre Dame, Florida State. That's going to be an interesting game because you have Notre Dame, who I believe are staying in the SEC. I don't believe they're leaving the SEC or ACC, excuse me. I could be wrong about that, but they lost Ian Book to the draft. I can't remember off the top of my head where he got drafted at. They have a senior in Cole Capon, I believe is how you pronounce his name, that I've heard a good bit about. I don't really follow Notre Dame, so I don't know, where they're going to go as far as starting quarterback and stuff like that goes. But then you have the emotion of Florida State losing an icon last week. And, you're the only game on a Saturday night on a Labor Day weekend, which is kind of how they do it every year. You have, your Saturday slate of games, and then the networks pick, hey, we think this game will be good, and we think this game will be good. And, of course, it's on ABC, so you're going to have more than likely Kirk Herbstreit and that entire crew following that. And then on Monday on ESPN, you're going to have Ole Miss and Louisville. Ole Miss, for me, last year was one of those teams that could have upset anybody. They had a attitude like no other. And I remember watching the Alabama Ole Miss game and going, Lane Kiffin could be the first Nick Saban assistant to beat Nick Saban. And I don't like seeing Alabama lose as an Alabama fan. I've been spoiled in this Saban era. Before Saban, we were used to losing for a little while, just with the jumble of coaches that we had during that time. But I remember a few years ago, I was at a party and an Alabama watch party, and it was the game. It was the Alabama-Auburn game, the kick six game that everybody likes to continuously play and shoved down our throats. But it is, oh, we were there, and there was this little kid who was probably 10 or 11 years old, an Alabama fan, and he was this type of kid who has never seen Alabama lose. I mean, you think about how old he is. He was born in the Nick Saban era. So as soon as that happened, as soon as the kick six happened, this kid had a meltdown, and Alabama's never going to win another game again. The world is over. And I looked at that and I thought about my own fandom and just like how spoiled I am to be an Alabama fan. And, but again, it's one of those things where I think Ole Miss could be one of the teams that kind of gives Alabama a run for their money this year, just because of how close that game was last year. I think that Texas A&M is going to take a step forward, and I think that Georgia is going to take a step forward. I think Georgia is going to win their division in the conference, and I think Alabama is going to win their division in the conference. So I think it's going to be Alabama, Georgia in the SEC championship. But, you have years like 2 years ago when LSU just kind of came in and blew everybody away. So it's kind of hard to predict things before seeing them play a game. But that is my early prediction on the SEC and how that's going to play out. I mean, those are some of the bigger games that I see coming up on the schedule on this first week of college football. I'm just excited for college football to be back. I mean, it doesn't feel like it should be September yet. And I know we're a couple of weeks away from it, but it doesn't feel like it should be football season yet. And so I'm excited for that. I want to kind of look in on some of the preseason games going on right now. Right now, the Titans are up on the Falcons 3-0 going into the second, and the Bills and the Lions are tied with 12:50 left in the second quarter. So I want to kind of look more into this preseason, into this NFL season in general. But I want to do it after a short intermission, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes.